Welcome to Pages and Pots. In this episode, we will venture deep into the mystical initiation of Joseph as described in the arcane text of the oral tradition of the Jewish people. We'll begin with the biblical story of Joseph as told in the book of Genesis. There, in the first book of the Bible, we meet the most cherished son of Jacob and his beloved wife, Rachel. Jacob is the patriarch of a nomadic familial tribe. They moved their livestock in a seasonal progression across a semi-arid desert plain filled with scrub brush, brown tufts of grass. The story opens at a nearby oasis marked by a few palm trees. Jacob's household has not yet reached 70 souls. A dozen tents ripple in the dry wind. Goats are wandering around the camp. Women exchange stories as they feed their children, and men take a break from repairing their wagons beneath the open sky. Tension hangs in the air. Joseph, the second youngest of 11 brothers, has carelessly shared two dreams, and they're not having it. His words have stirred something dangerous. Their anger is no longer hidden. Standing nearby, you hear Joseph tell his amazing dream to his brothers. Listen while I tell you about this dream of mine. We were tying up bundles of wheat in the field when suddenly my bundle got up by itself and stood upright. Then your bundles came, gathered around mine, and prostrated themselves before it. Taken plainly, the dream depicts Joseph exalted above his brothers, and it ignites their brewing contempt and anger for their spoiled brother. Later, he tells them another dream, where this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars prostrate themselves before him. This is more than the brothers can bear. They lure him outside of Jacob's camp. Once out of sight, they seize Joseph, strip off his clothes, including the multicolored coat given by Jacob, and cast him into a dry cistern. But simply killing him wasn't enough. They wanted a lasting revenge, so they sold him to a band of Canaanite traders passing near the oasis. Once Joseph was taken away by the slave traders, the brothers' fury subsided. It was then that they realized what they'd done. Although they had no regret for their actions, they were filled with fear of Jacob. What would they tell their father? Judah had a plan. They shred Joseph's multicolored robe, slaughtered a goat, and soaked the cloth in blood. They presented it to their father as proof that a wild beast had devoured his son. The ruse succeeds. Jacob mourns deeply, believing his favorite son was lost forever. The brothers watched in silence. But that is not the whole story. The rest unfolds through the Jewish oral tradition, a narrative collection of teachings, debates, transmitted for centuries and committed to writing after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE. A legacy put to parchment to preserve the Jewish memory through years of exile and persecution. While the first 5 books of the Christian Old Testament, known in Judaism as the Torah, contain the foundations of Jewish law and the sacred history up to the death of Moses, the oral tradition preserves the deeper narratives, the metaphors and homilies that reveal the inner lives of the people. These teachings were not excluded from the canon because they weren't true. They were excluded because they carried contested meaning and initiatory knowledge, intended to be learned gradually and responsibly, rather than read carelessly without preparation. Many of these teachings were composed in Hebrew and Aramaic, making them largely inaccessible to the Christian world for centuries. One of the most significant modern translations is called the Me'em Loetz, Originally composed by Rabbi Yaakov Kuli in the 18th century and first translated into English in 1977. The name literally means from a people of strange language. At face value, Joseph's first dream appears to speak of pride and exaltation, but is he truly demanding that his brothers bow to him? The Ma'om Loes offers deeper understanding. Some commentaries describe the first dream as Joseph foretelling Egypt, where his rise to power will save his family under Pharaoh's law, while others explain the meaning of the center sheaf in an eschatological way as Israel holding divine light at the end of days, with the nations turning towards it for guidance and salvation. The brothers' clever plot by Jacob's son to get rid of Joseph once and for all sets into motion Joseph's prophetic dream. They force their brother into his divine initiation. By initiation, I mean a mystical transformation, one brought about not by ritual alone, but through descent, suffering, and rebirth. Here, I define Joseph's initiation in the context of Rudolf Steiner's explanation, in which an initiative is one who develops inner capacities to perceive higher worlds. As Steiner writes, the initiate must therefore follow Goethe's dictum: all that is transitory is but a parable. What the initiate sees in the higher worlds can only be expressed in images from the sensual world in order to be understood by regular people. This principle lay at the heart of Heliopolis, the priest city of the sun, Atum Ra. As an elite member of the inner group of the sun priests, Joseph will form a bridge uniting their ancient wisdom with the occult rituals of Mesopotamia, including those from Abraham's city of origin. When Joseph is cast into the dry cistern, he confronts physical death, the annihilation of the embodied self, and in Steiner's term, encounters the lesser guardian of the threshold. Though he survives the pit, he is raised only to face the second crossing. Stripped of clothing, dignity, and name, he is severed from his family and sold as a slave to Midianite traders. Joseph is dispossessed of his body and his lineage. Tradition even holds that the Midianites intended to sell him into sexual slavery in the brothels of Heliopolis. However, that will not be his destiny. Me'om Loetz adds that Joseph was no mere shepherd. He had been trained by Jacob in the arcane wisdom of Mesopotamia, the initiatory teachings of Shem and Eber, the descendants of Noah. Even the priestly knowledge of Melchizedek, king of Salem, who once blessed Abram, was imparted through by Jacob. The story now turns more arcane. When the brothers tear Joseph's robe and stain it with goat's blood, they unknowingly enact a ritual sacrifice that seals his initiation. According to tradition, the robe, traced from Adam through Noah and Abraham, embodied primordial transmission. And by tearing it apart, the brothers mark Joseph's symbolic death and direct his initiatory path towards the amalgamation of his brothers into the 12 tribes of Israel, who in turn will become a people set apart from the wider human tribe. Lastly, we can't neglect the imagery of the slaughtered goat, a creature that appears across Egypt and Mesopotamia at moments of judgment, symbolized creation and rebirth. The goat takes on the guilt and the excesses of people. The sacrifice of the ancient robe with the blood of the goat calls upon the cosmic will of the Creator to sanctify Joseph's initiatory rebirth and the beginnings of the tribes stemming from Jacob into a people who will be known as Israel. The rite concludes with Jacob tearing his own garments, affirming Joseph's death. Yet the reader knows the story has not ended. It has only just begun. Check back for the next episode in the story of Joseph in Egypt.